Even though she vanished immediately after high school, she was able to join our organization. You're only a temporary employee, and she didn't even attend college. That's absurd. At my new job, I suddenly encountered across a high school friend with whom I had severed relations because of their contemptuous behavior toward me. She appears to think that I am only a temporary employee even if I didn't go to college because of particular circumstances. And then she smiled wickedly and added, "I'll take extra good care of you starting today." I decided to respond with a smile as well. "No, that's my line," I said, watching as my classmate fell into despair. "My name is Alex. I must admit my family is quite wealthy. My father runs a company and my mother is a homemaker. Being an only child, my parents spared no expense in my education, sending me to private schools. In elementary school, I was often the leader in my classes, probably because I was decent in both academics and sports. I attended a prestigious K-12 school, so naturally, I progressed to its middle school. In middle school, I continued to play a leading role in class and even serve as the class rep. Thanks to my parents' support, I maintained top grades and enjoyed a fun school life with friends from my elementary days. Then, one day, a new student transferred into my class. "I'm Elizabeth. I was living in France until last month, so speaking English is still a bit difficult for me," she said. "Nice to meet you," I replied. Elizabeth, a girl from France with a French father and an American mother, was undeniably beautiful, instantly becoming the center of attention in the class. The class was buzzing with excitement. "Elizabeth, your seat will be next to Alex. He's the class rep, so if you have any trouble, feel free to ask him for help," said our teacher, Mr. Miller. Realizing I was being handed all the responsibilities, I jokingly said, "Mr. Miller, isn't this a bit of a dump on me? Alex, as the class rep, is more approachable for someone your age." "All right, let's start the morning meeting. Elizabeth, please take your seat," he replied. Elizabeth sat down next to me. "Nice to meet you," I greeted her. "Nice to meet you too," she replied, making me smile. Elizabeth was incredibly beautiful, and her uniqueness, coming from France to this private middle school, quickly made her the center of attention in our class and popular throughout the grade. I think her innocent and adorable personality was one of the reasons for her popularity. Moreover, Elizabeth's English, slightly awkward due to her recent stay in France, ended up being considered adorable and further increased her popularity. Moreover, Elizabeth and I turned out to be neighbors. I had noticed a moving truck in front of the long vacant house next door and remembered my mom saying the Martins had moved in next door. When I first heard Elizabeth's name, I thought Martin was a common surname, never imagining she'd be my classmate. I discovered she was my neighbor by chance when encountering her, as we both left for school one morning. Since we were classmates, avoiding her would be strange, so I decided to speak up. "Good morning," I said. "Good morning. Why are you here?" she asked. "I live in the house next door." "You're my neighbor," I replied. "Looks like it. Want to walk to school together?" she asked. "Sure, let's go," I said. It turns out that while Elizabeth often spoke English with her mother at home in France, she still found French easier to speak. "Alex, how do you say this in English?" "It's flow, which means fleur in French," she asked. "Flow. Got it. Haha, the native pronunciation is really different, isn't it? English is difficult. There's no other way but to get used to it. Let's talk a lot like this," I said. "Sure," Elizabeth replied energetically, and we left together. Soon after we started walking to school together, we were greeted with, "Are you two dating already?" I responded, "We just happen to live next door. Besides, I'm her mentor here." Then everyone in the class seemed to accept it, saying, "Well, that makes sense." That's how we naturally started walking to and from school together. During our walks, I would teach Elizabeth English, and she would teach me French. Her French lessons were easy to understand, and she said, "Alex's English lessons are really clear." Thanks to this, my French improved significantly, and my grades in French rose as well. Gradually, Elizabeth's English also became more fluent. In no time, we were in our third year of middle school, and it was time to think about our future paths. Our school was a K-12 institution, so we could continue to high school and college without changing schools. However, wanting to experience the outside world, I decided to attend a different high school after discussing it with my parents and getting their approval. With encouraging words from Mr. Miller like, "With your grades, you'll be fine," I passed the entrance exam for the top high school in the county. Surprisingly, I found Elizabeth at the same exam venue. She was also applying to this high school. "Why are you here, Elizabeth?" I asked. "I thought I'd try applying to an external school," she said with a smile. Elizabeth also passed, and we both entered the same high school that fall. In high school, Elizabeth's beauty, accentuated by her mixed heritage, became even more pronounced. She was popular, academically excellent, and always in the spotlight. Right from the start, she was entered into the school's beauty contest held during the fall festival without her knowledge. Seeing how popular she had become, she started to seem like a distant celebrity on TV to me. It's strange. We used to sit next to each other in class and live next door. As for me, being from the same middle school as Elizabeth, I was constantly asked for her contact information to pass on letters and to help set up meetings with her by other guys, which I tried my best to avoid. Initially, we went to high school together, just like in middle school, but as Elizabeth became busy with her duties as class rep and started going to school with other friends, we gradually grew apart. Well, I made my own friends too, so perhaps it was a natural divergence of social circles. I felt a bit lonely but thought it was probably for the best since things couldn't stay the same as in middle school. Although we had grown apart, we still greeted each other normally and talked occasionally. We had settled into a relationship of just classmates. After starting part-time work in high school, I made friends with classmates from other schools and enjoyed expanding my world outside of school. In my second year, I chose the liberal arts track and ended up in the same class as Elizabeth, but we hardly talked. Our conversations, when they did happen, were brief, and as classmates, I spent more and more time talking and hanging out with a few other boys in our liberal arts class. I would head straight to work after school. Elizabeth was busy with her club activities, so it was rare for us to interact. In my senior year, I got into a hobby with friends from other schools and started focusing more on that. I'd rather be doing this than going to school that I have to attend, I thought to myself. Honestly, I had started neglecting school, attending only in name and often just sleeping through everything but the lessons. I would sometimes fall asleep even during class, earning scoldings from my teachers. Then one day, Elizabeth, as class rep, suddenly asked me, "Alex, what are you doing at such a crucial time in your senior year?" It had been a long time since we had a conversation like this. "Just busy with various things," I replied. "What kind of things?" she asked. "Nothing that concerns you, Elizabeth. It's just something I enjoy doing," I answered. Hearing this, Elizabeth looked visibly upset. I absent-mindedly thought about how Elizabeth still wears her emotions on her sleeve. "If it's none of my business, I can't say much, but you need to be careful. It will affect your grades and your transcript," Elizabeth warned. "Yeah, I'll be more mindful. Thanks, Elizabeth," I replied. Though I said this, I continued to be busy with my own things, spending most of my days at school sleeping. We overcame the midterms and finals, and then it was summer break. While everyone else was attending summer courses as part of their university entrance exam preparations, I didn't attend any and spent my time immersed in part-time work. During this period, I rarely went home, so I didn't attend school either. I received messages from Elizabeth and other classmates asking, "Aren't you taking the summer courses?" However, I only replied, "I'm too busy with various things to attend." Then, when September arrived and summer break ended, I entered the classroom saying, "Good morning," when Elizabeth appeared in front of me. "Alex, what do you mean by not attending any of the summer classes?" she exclaimed. "Huh? You're the only one in our class who didn't attend. What were you doing while everyone else was working hard?" I didn't quite understand why Elizabeth was so upset about me not attending the classes, but I decided to be honest about what I had decided over the summer. "I've decided not to go to college. There's something I want to do after graduating from high school, so I'm going to pursue that," I said. Elizabeth looked at me, astonished. "I can't believe it. You were always sleeping in class, and now you're not even considering college? I never thought you were such a slothful person." "Slothful? Going to college isn't everything in life. Besides, I can always go to college if I feel like it. But right now, I want to focus on what I really want to do. Life isn't that easy. It won't just work out like that," I explained. Elizabeth seemed on the verge of tears as she said this. I didn't understand why she was getting so emotional, but I was well aware that life isn't easy. "I know. That's why I'm working hard right now, preparing so I don't fail," I replied. But Elizabeth gave me a sharp look and returned to her seat. After that, Elizabeth never spoke to me again. I heard from her mother that Elizabeth got into a famous national university. It seems that all of my classmates, except for me, were accepted into universities. My teacher, Mr. Anderson, repeatedly suggested, "Alex, you should consider going to college too," but I consistently declined. Eventually, I graduated from high school and left home. 10 years passed, and I was now 28. Since then, I had been following my own path, achieving my goals and working every day. And today, I am in my new workplace. I was excited to be working somewhere different from where I had been previously employed. I wondered about my new colleagues, hoping they would be good people. As I was thinking this, Alex, someone called my name. I turned around to see my colleague, Michael. "Michael, good to see you." "Looking well," I said. "Of course, man, you too." Michael, whom I hadn't seen in a while, playfully slapped my shoulder and I returned the gesture. "What brings you here? Busy as you are?" "I thought I'd give you a tour of the office," he replied. "Really? You?" "Yeah, I'm the most knowledgeable about this place. Let's go, Nube." I'm not a newbie. We laughed as Michael showed me around the office. Although the company had its own cafeteria, I wanted to see what was around the office. During the lunch break, I walked around and found a nearby cafe. It seemed they had a lunch menu. Perfect. I'll eat here, I thought to myself. I decided to enter the cafe, and after being seated and ordering from the lunch menu, I was checking my phone when, could it be Alex? I heard my name and looked up to see a woman standing there. She had beautiful features and somewhat resembled Elizabeth, my childhood friend. But it's been nearly 10 years since I last saw Elizabeth, so I had no idea how she might look now. Oh, why do you know my name? I asked. It's me, Elizabeth. We were together in high school, remember? Really, Elizabeth? I stood up in surprise. Yes, I'm Elizabeth. I wasn't sure if you were really Alex either. I'm surprised you recognized me, she said with a laugh. Somehow, it felt like a long time since I had seen Elizabeth smile. It was not just because it had been a long time since we met, but I felt like I hadn't seen her smile much. But why are you here? Oh, I just transferred to a company nearby today. Which company? Well, you know Moon World. That's where I'm working now. Moon World? I work there. What? I had no idea Elizabeth was an employee in my company. It was completely unexpected. Come to think of it, I heard a new guy was starting today. Could that be you? Maybe so. Our company was actively recruiting mid-career hires, so new employees joining wasn't unusual. So you're a temp then? I've heard the new guy was a temp. Elizabeth looked down on me as if she had made some conclusion. You disappeared right after high school, and now you've managed to get into our company? Wait, her words seemed quite sharp. So you didn't go to college and now you're just a temp? That's laughable. Elizabeth laughed more and said, from today, as a regular employee and your senior, I'll be taking good care of you, with a mischievous smile. No, that would be my line, I replied to Elizabeth with a smile. What? Sorry, but I'm actually your boss. I'm not a temp. I'm the vice president of Moon World. Elizabeth's mouth dropped open at my words, and after a moment she said, What are you talking about? Is this some kind of joke? It's no joke, I said. I pulled out my business card and handed it to a still stunned Elizabeth. It read, Alex Carter, Vice President, Moon World Corporation. This must be fake. There's no way. Is this some kind of fabrication? Elizabeth was frantically examining the business card, flipping it over and holding it up to the light. I mean, there's no reason for me to fabricate such a business card. She still couldn't believe it. No, it's true, I said. Just then, I heard, Hey, Alex. Today seems to be a day for being called out. There was Michael. President Thompson, Hey, Elizabeth, you're here too. Having lunch. Yes, Alex, are you eating here? Mind if I join? Michael asked. Of course, I agreed. Sure, let's eat together. Michael sat down beside me, called the waiter, and ordered the same lunch. President Thompson, this person is our company's vice president, Elizabeth said to Michael. He casually confirmed, yeah, that's right. Alex had been working overseas for us, but we recently transferred him to the headquarters. Did you two know each other? You're about the same age, right? Elizabeth and I were classmates in middle and high school. Wow, really? That's quite a coincidence. Michael laughed. Soon, the lunch Michael and I ordered arrived, and we enjoyed our meal while chatting. Watching Michael and me talk amiably, Elizabeth seemed stunned and muttered. So it really was true. I first met Michael at a fast food restaurant where I started working in high school. He was the same age, and we hit it off immediately. One day, Michael said, I want to do something big rather than just living an ordinary life. One day when Michael said that, I strongly agreed with him. I felt living a life of just going to college, getting a job at some company, and working there seemed uninteresting. Looking back, it might have been a childish longing to do something different from everyone else. But Michael and I decided to make our dream a reality. After discussing what we could do together, we decided to start our own company. Since Michael surprisingly liked cute things and curiosities, we came up with the idea of sourcing these items from around the world and selling them. Thanks to Elizabeth, during our school commutes, I had become proficient in French, so I traveled the world sourcing these items while Michael, attending a commercial high school, handled the administrative aspects. Neglecting high school, we prepared for our venture with advice from my father, who ran his own company. As our high school graduation approached, we finalized our preparations, and soon after, Michael and I founded our company. I traveled back and forth between the U.S. and abroad collecting goods, while Michael sold them online and in stores. Of course, at first we faced many challenges and dangers during our trips abroad. We often ended up with products that broke easily or had our wallets and phones stolen countless times. Together, Michael and I overcame these obstacles, and gradually our company's transactions increased, leading to its successful expansion. We were able to grow our workforce and bring the company to where it is today. Now we have branches in both the US and overseas, and until recently, I was our overseas branch. But Michael, the president, said, "Isn't it about time you come back to us as a successful young president?" Michael was often interviewed by magazines, and he would always talk about me, his co-founder. Since I was abroad, explaining my absence became a hassle for him. Michael suggested we do the interview together. It'd be less of a hassle, but I was starting to miss home and wanted to return to the US, so I handed over the overseas branch to someone else and made my way back. Getting used to the work in the US, I was relaxing at a cafe near the office after work. As I sighed and took a moment to relax, there was Elizabeth again. She stood beside me, looking like she had something she wanted to say. "Hey, Elizabeth, what's up?" I wanted to apologize to Alex for what? "Have a seat first," I said, inviting her to sit down and quickly ordered a drink for her. "I'm sorry about the other day. I mistakenly thought you were a temp and made fun of your high school graduation status." "Don't worry about it. It was my fault for causing the misunderstanding." The next day, a new temp named Robert actually joined the company, so it was understandable for Elizabeth to be confused. And in high school, I said you were a slowful person without really knowing anything about you. "Oh, did you say that?" "Now that I can say it, I've always liked you, Alex." "What? Really?" I was genuinely surprised by Elizabeth's sudden confession. "I was happy when you were kind to me after I transferred, and I really enjoyed walking to and from school with you. That's why I followed you to the same high school. But we started drifting apart right in our second year when we were in the same class. I thought we could get closer again, but you were always sleeping in school and we hardly talked. It felt like you drifted away, and I felt somewhat betrayed. It was all my selfish feelings, though." So Elizabeth felt the same way back then. "I thought maybe if we went to the same university, we could spend time together again. But then you said you weren't going to college and I got really upset. That's why I said life isn't easy and called you slothful. I regret it now." Elizabeth's voice turned formal towards the end, making me laugh. "And even though you were always sleeping in school, you were always at the top of the class, which I thought. I made sure to stay awake in class in high school, and I didn't want to get scolded for grades. Despite how it looks, I did study on my own. My parents said I could do whatever I wanted as long as I graduated from high school, so I kept my grades at least at a minimum level." I reminisced. Those days were tough, juggling startup preparations, studies, and part-time work, but they were fulfilling. High school teachers don't say much as long as your grades are good. Yeah, but they kept asking me to go to college. Of course they would. A top student not going to college would be a big deal for a prestigious school. "Actually, Mr. Anderson even asked me to persuade you to go to college," Elizabeth said. "Mr. Anderson asked you too. He must have been really desperate." Elizabeth and I then had a lively conversation, filling in the time we missed talking to each other in high school. I noticed in high school how Elizabeth was becoming more popular, and it felt like she was moving away from me. Hearing this, Elizabeth murmured, "I wonder if we wouldn't have drifted apart if we had been more honest with our feelings back then." Maybe. I wonder how Elizabeth would have reacted if I had told her back then, "Actually, I'm starting a business." Would she have supported me, or would she have advised me to give up on that idea? After a brief silence, I said, "Hey, Elizabeth, how about we start over as friends again?" "What?" I was really happy about your confession. We drifted apart in high school even as friends, but I've been thinking I want to enjoy spending time with you again, I said. Elizabeth nodded, tears in her eyes, and said, "Yes, let's start over." From then on, Elizabeth and I began spending time together again as colleagues and friends. We went out for meals together, sometimes with Michael and other employees, and even hung out as a group. Elizabeth was just as innocently charming as before. Despite occasional arguments, I enjoyed the days spent with her. Eventually, I realized I liked Elizabeth and wanted to be with her more. The deciding factor was when a tipsy Elizabeth said one night, "The happiest time of my life was walking to and from school with you in middle school." Even when I dated others, I always thought the happiest time was when I spent time with you, she confessed. I was genuinely touched realizing she had such feelings for me. Since I knew Elizabeth was single during one of our dinners, I decided to confess. "Spending time as friends, I've realized I like you, Elizabeth. Will you go out with me?" I asked. "Yes," Elizabeth quickly nodded, and we started dating. About a year later, today marks the first anniversary of Elizabeth and my relationship. I decided to propose to Elizabeth today, planning the ultimate classic proposal. The venue is a restaurant with a beautiful night view. I meticulously planned the surprise proposal, coordinating everything with the restaurant staff. Midway through the meal, I excused myself to change into a tuxedo. Then going back to our table, I knelt before Elizabeth and said, "Elizabeth, I will make you happy forever. Will you marry me?" Elizabeth nodded, tears in her eyes, and said, "Yes, I'd be honored." Having once put my own goals first and lost something significant, I was thankful for the opportunity to start over and find happiness like this. Going forward, I want to make spending time with Elizabeth my top priority. Although I'm still young, I might make mistakes in prioritizing Elizabeth, and she might too. This time, we plan to avoid drifting apart, openly sharing our thoughts, and going through life together.